Oh,
Uh-oh.
wow. That wasn't supposed to happen, guys. I have
Wow.
no idea what happened there, but we are recording. And do you know what time it is? It's
Oh,
Tuesday afternoon, and it's 3:30, and it's time for What in the World with Paul Seaburn and his sidekick, John Donalo. And for some reason, Zoom just zoomed us in.
amazing.
That's a good sign.
It's like
a good sign.
you paid your bill, right? Is that it?
Yeah, I must have, because Zoom accepted us. So, hey,
Here you go.
The Zoom bill. You always got to pay the Zoom bill first,
Yep.
before you pay the gas or the electricity. You pay the Zoom bill. Otherwise, you can't get What in the World with me, Paul Seaburn, your host. Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening to our podcast or watching it on YouTube. If you're watching it, that's great. If you're watching it live, well, cool. 3:30 in the afternoon, 2:30 Central Time, sometime Pacific Time, taking the time out of your day to watch What in the World. I think that's great. You're my favorite person if you're listening, if you're watching us that way. Thank you for joining us. If you're listening to us in the future on Zoom or on what are we on? We're on all the podcast platforms.
YouTube.
And that, yeah, YouTube and Apple and all that stuff. So I'm Paul Seaburn. I'm your host of What in the World. I am also the editor and head writer at mysteriousuniverse.org, where I do all kind of weird paranormal stuff. And What in the World, for those of you who haven't been here before, we like to do fun news items that you don't hear anywhere else. Our motto is real news, sometimes strange, always funny. And when I say we, I'm referring to first the voice that you just heard a little while ago, Karen Hale, the media mogul at newclevelandradio.net, which is our platform, our producer, and our co-host. So hi, Karen, how are you today?
Oh, I'm wonderful.
Yes, you're looking great as always. Then we've got at the other end of the spectrum, we've got our other co-host here.
Hey, that's a left-handed compliment.
Don't worry, John. I'll compliment you later. Don't worry about it. That voice is John Donalo, our host of What in the World of Sports, trivia mogul, all around good guy. Hey, John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Paul and Karen. It's Tuesday. We're in Cleveland, and it's good. It's a good day.
Yeah, John is being a mushroom. He's hiding in the dark because his favorite team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, had two atrocious games this past weekend. So I don't blame you, John. I would do the same thing. Hopefully, the Cleveland Cavaliers are one of the few teams that have come back from a 3-1 deficit. So who knows?
Hope springs eternal. Let's leave it
Yes.
And other than that, that's the end of talking about local Cleveland sports teams right now. So let's get right to it with what all the kind of weird things is going on. Here's a little teaser for you. What are we talking about today? Oh! This is our first story coming up. Seagull screaming. There's a seagull screaming championship in Belgium. Belgium? Yeah, Belgium. That's what it says here. The Bigfoot sanctuary in Washington State just opened up. We're going to visit that. There's auto mechanics in space. We're going to find out about those. Parrots now have cell phones. You'll find out what's going on there. A trash talking mermaid. I believe she's in Florida. We're going to visit with her. More odd news. John's got a great sport for us this week. A bunch of world records. I've got some really cool world records we're going to talk about. Trivia, as always. And then, of course, at the end, we play everybody's favorite weird news game, Bluff the co-host. So let's get right to it with our first story. As I mentioned, this one comes from, it does come from Belgium. Okay, so this is the, I don't want to put the photo up yet because it'll take all the attention away from the introduction here. So there's a town in Belgium called De Panne, and it's on the coast, which leads up to the fact that it has a lot of seagulls. And so many seagulls, and they're so beloved in this town, or at least partially beloved, that they have an annual European Seagull Screeching Championship, where three judges, not one, not two, but three judges, judge the best imitation of a seagull shriek. Now, they get participants from all over Europe, maybe even all over the world. They had 50 this past time. people who are brand new, people who are veterans at Seagull screaming, which is hard to say. They're judged by a professional jury. They get up to 15 points for how well they do on the scream, and they get 5 points for their behavior, how well they act like a seagull. So that's my intro to the photo of our first contestant here. There you go. Now, there's a guy who is certainly acting like a seagull. He is an overweight seagull, I might add. Actually, he looks more like an eagle, doesn't he? He doesn't look. That's where he's at. He's at the Seagull Screaming Championship. I'm sure he got some points for dressing like that. John, John, this is a sport that you could participate in. I think you would be a great participant in seagull screaming. I have sat next to you at many games. I've listened to you sing the national anthem. You've got it down pat. You'd be perfect at this.
Well, you know what? Let me find out about it. This is the first time I've ever heard of it, Paul. I'd like to find out more about it.
So you get points for dressing like a seagull. This guy actually invested in his costume. Some of the people, it looks like they were eating maple syrup on pancakes, and then they opened up a feather pillow and threw it all over themselves.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a seagull to me because it's got a brown body.
I know he looks like I didn't look that closely at him, but he was part of the story. So
Okay.
yeah, he does. He looks more like a bald eagle from around here. Here's one. So these people really got into it. They put white clothing on. They painted seagull images on their faces, and they're singing up a storm here. So that's contestants number 2. And then number 3 was the winner. This guy was 21 years old. This is the guy who covered himself with feathers, something sticky and feathers. He's got big black eyeballs on his forehead.
Wow.
And so the reason why they do this, this is interesting. They're trying to change the image of seagulls. They said that seagulls get a bad rap, which I think is true. We live in Cleveland, Ohio, which is on a Lake Erie, and yet we have seagulls. You've seen them, John. You've seen them, Karen. You've seen them, right?
Absolutely.
In fact, they're also on the Cuyahoga River a lot.
Okay, John. Perfect example. So we have 2 bodies of water, a river and a lake. What are seagulls doing there? They don't belong there. They need to go find an ocean or a sea, the Sea of Galilee or someplace. Go over there. Don't bother us.
At least an ocean. I mean,
an ocean. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sure.
So and you know why their reputation is bad. They poop everywhere, for one thing. If you're eating outside, they'll come and they'll steal your food. That's a big complaint at resorts, is they steal your food. They live nowhere near the sea, obviously, if they live in Cleveland. But I've seen where they eat, and because of where they eat, I think they should be called fast food garbage bin gulls. Because that's where you see them, right?
sure,
At
absolutely.
McDonald's eating French fries. Okay, so we move from Belgium to Holland. Okay, so this is from the Dutch candy manufacturer Tanis, Tanis is the name of the company. They actually make the machines that make candy. They're not candy makers themselves. They make the machine. They just set a Guinness World Record for the world's largest gummy bear. I'm going to put a picture of it here while I give you the details on it. World's largest gummy bear. This is 2 by 2 meters. So that's 6.5 feet by 6.5 feet long and wide. So it's almost a square. It's an orange gummy. It weighs 3,750 pounds. That's the world record. Over 1,700 kilograms for our European listeners. To get the record, get ready for this. The gummy bear had to be hard, edible, and stay on a plate for 5 minutes. Now I Googled that: hard, edible, gummy, and stay on a plate, and I got a really dirty movie. So I don't do that. But anyways, take a look at this picture. For those of you who can't see it, they say it's on a plate, but it actually looks like a slab in a morgue.
Right.
Yeah, they all have white coats on. Some of the people have those white hairnets on, and the poor gummy is just laying there. It looks like a dead bear, a dead orange bear
Yeah,
on
it
a
does.
slab, about to get autopsied. It doesn't get any better with this other picture here. A little closer. This is the one of the guys holding up their Guinness World Record certificate.
How do you eat something like that?
Oh, well, first you have to build the mold. That's what they did. So they know how to build a machine. They had to build this giant mold. Then they had to make the liquid that would harden. So it took them, it's amazing. It took them a couple of weeks. Over 20 people worked on this. Must be off season for gummy bear making. And they crafted this giant mold. Then they poured all the stuff in to make the orange gummy bear. Their first attempt was unsuccessful because the bear did not harden appropriately. So of course they poured some Viagra in to
Well, whatever means possible.
I'm not sure I don't think they used Viagra, but they had to put a hardening agent in there. And eventually, so to answer your question, the first thing, Karen, is it has to be made like a real gummy. It has to contain gummy liquid, just like the real gummies. It has to maintain its shape. And it's currently kept in refrigerated storage, which, I mean, it goes with that morgue idea again. It's going to be showcased to the public at an international trade fair coming up for packaging technology in Dusseldorf, which is in Germany. Following that, the gummy bear has to go back to Belgium, to Oosterhout. I love Belgian name, Oosterhout. And in order to keep the record, they have to cut it up somehow and distribute it, eat the whole thing. So the entire thing has to be eaten in order for them to keep the world record. Yeah. So that means they could get another world record for the most fillings loosened by a gummy bear.
You're right.
So yeah, I mean they're not the best thing to chew, but so this bear, this 3,750-pound bear, is the equivalent of 850,000 standard-sized gummy bears. To give you another idea of just exactly how big this gummy bear is. The original gummy bear was created in 1922. I don't have my trivia horn anymore here. By the Haribo company, which you'll still see their name on certain packages of gummy bears.
Yes.
And yeah, they were inspired by trained bears that they used to have at street festivals back in those days in Europe. And they were marketed throughout the 19th century by Haribo. And the name of the bear, it was called the Dancing Bear. Fruit-flavored gum candy treat for adults and children alike. That was the big ad. In the United States, if you buy a Haribo, the actual original brand, they only come in 5 flavors. And this is a quiz for the both of you and everybody listening out there. So I'm going to give you the flavor. You tell me what color it is. Raspberry.
Raspberry would be blue.
Blue. John, what do you say?
Maybe red?
Red. John's right. Raspberries are red. Orange. This is a tough one. Karen, well, I'll give that one to you. So you
Orange.
Can catch Okay. Lemon.
Yellow.
Yellow. Okay. Strawberry. Now, you can't repeat colors here.
Pink.
Oh, that's a good guess. John, you have a guess?
I was going to say pink too.
It's green. For some reason, because they can't use red, if you get a green gummy bear, it'll taste like strawberry. And pineapple, what color do you think pineapple is?
Would be yellow.
We've already used yellow.
Oh, then that, but okay.
For those of you playing at home, the answer is colorless. If you get a gummy bear that's clear, it'll taste like pineapple if you're a big pineapple fan.
Oh,
yeah. So I was
Yeah.
thinking that contest about the seagull, they could do this with the bears too. Get people, you fill your mouth with gummy bears, and then you try to roar like an actual bear, and whoever sounds the closest to a bear wins. It could happen. So, okay. So for all the Bigfoots out there who are listening to the show, we have a huge following in the Bigfoot world, not just people who believe in Bigfoot, but actual Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, the one down in Australia, whose name I could never remember, Yowie, the Yowie. We get mail. Karen's mailbox is always full of.
Oh, it's so full. You can't believe it.
So the Bigfoot world is all excited. I'll take this gummy bear down here because I don't have a photo to go along with this one. Bigfoot world is all excited this week because Clallam County, Clallam County in Washington State has officially been declared the Sasquatch Protection and Refuge Zone in Washington State. So it's a Sasquatch Protection and Refuge Zone. So this is for Bigfoot who don't feel safe at home, which they get that same question when they go to the doctor all the time. And if you're under the age of 50, you've never heard your doctor ask you that. But anyways, so if you don't feel safe, Bigfoot, from living at home, move to Washington to live in Clallam County, which is a refuge for Bigfoot. Any Bigfoot living in the area or visiting for the Forks Sasquatch Day Festival in May all qualify to be members of the sanctuary. However, they do qualify that any swamp apes from Florida do not qualify because swamp apes act like Florida man, and they don't want any crazy Florida Bigfoot in Washington. So sorry, clean up your act. Now, I wanted to read the proclamation because I thought this was great. Where it's got a bunch of whereases in it, so that's how you know it's official. Mm-hmm. Whereas, yeah, John, my legal expert, confirms us here. Whereas legend, sighting, research, investigation, and recognition by various counties in various states support the notion that Sasquatch exist, and with number one, I want to stop there because I think it's nice that they also included Bigfoot, Yeti, and giant hairy ape. I checked with them, and they also said they also include gay Bigfoot, lesbian, and trans Bigfoot. So very inclusive people up there in Washington State. Very
yes.
Yeah. Whereas, if Sasquatch exists, it is not flourishing. Given the very unusual event of being sighted, and it's likely an endangered species and subject to great harm and extinction if it continues to be unprotected. Whereas Clallam County desires that its citizens recognize the need to protect Sasquatch. Now, therefore, also another legal term there, John, right? Now, therefore, we, the Board of Clallam County Commissioners, hereby request all citizens of Clallam County recognize this as a refuge of Sasquatch. There you go. So all set. We could have done this in Cleveland. We've talked about at least one Bigfoot in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. If nothing else, I think they should put up a sign. They should put up a Bigfoot crossing in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, if you hit a Bigfoot, you can imagine what kind of damage that's going to do to your car.
Yep.
So yeah, put a crosswalk up there like they have for the bikers and the hikers. We could do that. Then I could talk about that on What in the World. Okay. All right. So now we go to Carnegie Mellon, University, which is in Pittsburgh. I've got a couple of Pittsburgh stories here. So researchers at Carnegie Mellon Robotics Institute have designed a robot, an off-the-shelf robot, quadruped, that's the dog kind. I'll put up a picture in a second here, that is nimble enough to walk on a balance beam like they use in the Olympics in the gymnastics competition. Yeah, it's amazing. I wish I had I don't have a video of it, but if you Google the robot on balance beam, you can watch this dog-like robot walk very carefully, but not slowly across this balance beam. It's amazing to watch. It's a first for robot. The first time a robot has been able to walk across a balance beam. So now they're working on a floor exercise. If it can do a floor exercise, next time you go to the unemployment office, you're going to see a bunch of gymnasts standing in line, because if they can put a leotard on it, that's what they have to do.
Oh,
So they
yeah.
got to do floor exercise, balance beam, leotard.
Yep.
They're in the Olympics. Now, one of my favorite robots, and John, this is one of those old TV shows that maybe you want to dig up out of the vault and watch when you need some therapy. Do you think the robot from Lost in Space could walk on a balance beam?
I'm going to say no, because he was kind of klutzy.
Yeah,
No.
that's what I said.
To me, he was kind of klutzy. I mean, he was a robot, right? But he was not like streamlined by any means. He's kind of
Heck no. I put up a picture of him for you youngsters who don't remember the Lost in Space robot. His feet are enormous. Okay, I don't think his feet could fit on a balance beam, for one thing.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, and then those arms, those slinky arms of his, terrible for balance, because they were always just, danger, Will Robinson, danger. He's just waving them all over the place. So I don't believe that this robot, and I don't think he had a name. They just called him Robot, could walk
Why
across.
don't we call it he had a name?
No, there was a movie that had a very similar robot and he was called Robbie the Robot, and I'm not sure which one inspired the other, but no, this one, Will Robinson, and then he's calling for Will Robinson, poor little skinny Will Robinson. He's only like 10 years old on that show. If that robot's falling off the balance beam, Will Robinson's not going to help him.
That's true.
I think yeah, exactly. All right, let's go to a mermaid. Oh, and I've got a photo. I know John likes the photo of the mermaid.
I do.
I'm sorry, I didn't have a Bigfoot photo, so I'm making up for it with the mermaid. So this girl, lady, her name is Merle Levand, better known as Mermaid Merle. She lives in Florida. She calls herself the Eco Mermaid. And the reason why she calls herself the Eco Mermaid is because she swims with her mermaid fins on, and just set her fifth Guinness World Record by swimming 50 kilometers, that's 30 miles, while wearing her mermaid monofin, is what those are called, around Biscayne Bay in Miami, and collected trash along the way. And this photo, the photo on the right, shows her with her monocan. On the left, there she is, swimming with her feet inside the fin, picking up a can, looks like a soda can, while she's swimming. And what they do is they follow her along, and she throws them into the boat. So she swam 30 miles picking up garbage in Miami.
Why?
Because she's concerned about the environment.
Yeah, but you could, use a net to do it rather than. Never mind.
Would we be talking about it on What in the World if she used a net, Karen?
Oh, you're right. We wouldn't.
We're all about unconvention, that's for sure. So
excellent point, John. Excellent point. Unconventional. That's what we're saying here. She's in danger though when she's doing it, because the manatees, there's manatees all over the place, and the male manatees, they get a little love sick, and it's just like the sailors thought that manatees were actually beautiful mermaids. The manatees think that the mermaids are actually beautiful manatees. So she has to watch if there's any manatees around chasing after her. And it's tough being a mermaid these days. You may not realize this, but
sure.
Don't be so hasty, John, when you find out what the question is.
All right. Okay.
So the question is, if you're a mermaid, where do you go to the bathroom?
That's just one of the mysteries of the universe.
Good answer. That's just John's new answer when he doesn't know the answer. It's one of the mysteries of the universe.
It's a good catch-all. Think of it, folks. It's a good catch-all.
Well, my fear, somebody's going to suggest, probably our buddy Mark down in Austin. He would say, "Oh, well, she goes in the toilet just like everybody else." Oh no, not a mermaid. Toilets are like the funeral home for mermaids. They know all the goldfish go down there. Dora, what was that? Where in the world is Dora? I can't remember the name of the movie that she was in. She went down the toilet. she's not going to go on a toilet. Who knows what's going to happen? So I'm not going to say where I think mermaids go to the bathroom. I'll just leave it up to your imagination. All right. So
Idea.
now, as much as some of you would like for me to leave, what's her name again? Mermaid Merle up. I'm going to take her down here. There we go. All right. So this one comes from outer space. You know how we love, we're not just what in the world, we're what in the universe is what our name should be, because we occasionally have space stories, and this is a space story for you. This is about auto mechanics in space. And it's the weird, John, it's one of those unusual stories here. So two Russian cosmonauts are they're doing maintenance on the Russian side of the International Space Station. What kind of maintenance are they doing? They're replacing a radiator. I kid you not, they're replacing a radiator on the Russian side of it. This thing was built, it sounds like it's an old Chevy space capsule up there.
Yeah, really.
So they're replacing a radiator and they're talking to each other, like, Boris, hand me wrench. And all of a sudden, they pick up a sound in their headset that neither one of them said. And the sound is 150 Irigoyen, you said. 150 Irigoyen, you said? It's a question. Neither one of them has any idea. Neither one said it. They have no idea what it was. So they asked NASA, because they were concerned. They asked NASA if NASA would trace the audio to find out what it is. And they traced it to Argentina. In Argentina, there was a taxi cab driver who was communicating with his office to find out exactly where he was supposed to go to pick up his next fare. And somehow that signal got discombobulated and ended up in the headset of two Russian cosmonauts, replacing the radiator on the International Space Station.
Wow. That is weird.
You can't make that up.
No, you can't make that up. It's honest to God true. What part of that is more absurd? That a taxi connected to the International Space Station, or that cosmonauts are swapping a radiator?
Yeah. Both pretty. Yep.
Yeah. They're out there. They got wrenches, radiators, they got duct tape. They're just having a gay old time up there. The next thing, I can see this now. The next Russian module going up there will be a Jiffy Lube, so they can, speed up the oil change.
Yep.
And then think of the poor taxi driver down in Argentina. He gets their message coming back from the space station. So he's expecting them somebody to tell him to turn down some street in Buenos Aires, and instead this voice comes back that tells him to look for Mercury. So he's thinking, Mercury. They don't make Mercuries anymore. So he sends something insulting back up to the space station, and then they get insulted, and they say, well, why don't you look for it in Uranus? And he says, Uranus, hey, and the next thing you know, there's an international incident, and I just, Bruce, honest to God, I was just so shocked by that one. Okay, so there's some things in the world that you don't mess with, and usually it has to do with food on what in the world. So one of the things you don't mess with in the world of food, is fortune cookies. Don't mess with the way they taste.
Don't you dare.
Fortunes, right, Karen?
Right.
Yeah.
I need my good fortune.
That's right. And the lottery numbers on the back.
Yeah.
So I wonder what Confucius thinks about, he looks down from wherever he is in the afterlife, and all of his wisdom is neglected because everybody opens up their fortune cookie to get the lottery number on the back. And nobody ever wins, nobody, you never see anybody saying, I won $200 million from my fortune cookie. Never hear them say that.
Right, exactly.
No.
So, New York-based company Open Fortune, which produces and distributes fortune cookies to more than 47,000 restaurants around the world. Wow. They are the Michael Jordan of fortune cookies. They recently began using, and I hate to use this word because I hate it, they're using Chat GPT, that artificial intelligence that everybody's afraid of, that's kids are using it to write term papers, and Companies are using it to evaluate employees. It's awful. It's terrible. It's going to take over the world. So now it's taking over fortune cookies. They actually are using it. And the company said that it can write fortunes at an exponentially faster rate than humans. And most customers can't tell the difference, which that scares me even more. A customer can't tell the difference when it's a chat GPT fortune. When the fortune says, it says, you will meet a short, naked stranger with gray skin, a big head, and 3 fingers. That's not a human being. I'm sorry. That's a bad fortune. That's an artificial intelligent fortune. Don't listen to that. And you know what happened? People get it. They open that fortune, they read it, and they say, well, as long as he's got a job and he's good with kids, I'll meet him. Why not? So anyway, don't mess with fortune cookies. No artificial intelligence in fortune cookies. Okay, so we mentioned Pittsburgh before, and John will vouch for this, like the sports fan that he is. People in Cleveland don't like Pittsburgh. There's a simple reason why. It had nothing to do with the fine people in Pittsburgh. It has to do with their sports teams. Generally, one in particular whose name I'm not going to mention. Sorry, Steeler girl down in Texas. Oh, rat, I did it. So here's a reason to go to Pittsburgh. And this is for you, John. Crafton Ingram Lanes, a bowling alley in Pittsburgh, is now hosting nude bowling. Now, I know what you're thinking. Boy, I hope What in the World has pictures of this. Sorry. we don't want to get banned from YouTube and all the other platforms.
Thank you.
You can Google it just like everybody else. Yeah. So I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking, maybe I should go to Pittsburgh and investigate this. Do a road trip, a field trip. But I like bowling. I like bowling more than golf because when I bowl, I never lose my balls. So.
That's a good one.
Well, that's a good
anyway,
one. Yeah.
So John, I know John's already writing all this down. For those of you who can't see, John's writing down all the directions here. So
Yes,
John, it's called get ready for this. It's called Balls Out Bowling is the name of the event. And it's held by the Pittsburgh Area Naturist Club. So and it means very simply everybody has to be nude, or they make one exception, and that is if ladies want to wear bikini bottom, they can wear bikini bottom. Otherwise, everybody has to be nude. Now, before I go on, John and I have lived in Parma, Ohio. John, for many more years than I did, but we grew up in Parma, Ohio. When we were growing up, John, there were 2 major bowling alleys in Parma, Ohio. And I was imagining either one of those hosting nude bowling and what they would call it. Now,
I don't think I could see that. I mean, I know the bowling alleys, right? But
well, first one, it was on State Road. It's called Tuxedo Lanes. Sure. So of course it would be no tuxedo lanes for nude bowling night. But you're right, I couldn't see anybody. But the other one, and this is terrible, the other one, it was closer to my house, and that was called Red Circle Lanes. Now, I don't want nudity and red circle in the same sentence at all. So I don't think that those 2 would go together whatsoever.
Well, I'm right with you on those 2 for sure. I'm right with you.
And that's right. And we know a lot of people in Parma. I don't think we'd want to see too many people in Parma naked and bowling.
No,
in fact, throw out the bowling.
First of all, it's even a bad visual. I mean, leave it at that. So,
but think about it. The Olympics used to be in the nude back when the Olympics first started. With the Greeks, they competed naked. Yes. I was thinking, and just out of coincidence, I happened to turn on the TV looking for some sports this weekend, and I hit a bowling tournament, which I hadn't watched in years. So I sat and watched it for a little while. So now I'm thinking, would being nude help or hurt your score in bowling? John, what do you think? Expert opinion.
You know what? I think it would hurt. I think it would hurt your chances.
Physically or
no, I mean use this for everyone's imagination. I mean, I think you're clothed when you bowl for a basic reason, right? Let's leave it at that.
There you go. Okay. Karen, I'm not gonna.
You're gonna
Oh.
stick to the seats in between your chin.
Oh my, there you go. There it is. There it
Okay,
is.
Karen, very good point, and which brings up the next point that they mentioned was that it's BYOB and you must wear shoes. So you have to wear bowling shoes, but you're right, you can't have anything on the seat. So you're gonna stick to the seat. The other thing is there's no cameras or anything like that. So you have to sit there stuck to the seat while the other bowlers are bowling. What do you do? Okay, at a bowling alley, when you have clothes on, you eat.
Or
Now,
drink. Yeah.
or drink, eat or drink, John. So my question to the nudist listening to our show is, while you're eating, do you really need a napkin when you're nude?
That's
Good
a thought to
one.
ponder. That's a thought to ponder, Paul and Karen.
There you go, John. That's why I'm here, to think about those things for you. Now, everybody listening is going to be wondering about that for the rest of the day. Sorry. Okay.
Oh my.
So this is amazing to me. I've owned birds in my life. When it comes to pets, I have two favorite pets. One is dogs, and the other is birds. I used to love having cockatiels. So this is a story. An international team of scientists, I think in Australia, they've taught home parrots, all different kinds of parrots, to make video calls to other parrots on cell phone. Yeah, I don't know how. You have to Google it to find the video. The bird rings a bell and touches an image of another parrot on the phone, and then the bird actually asks the owner for the other bird to call them back. So see this, and then when they get the photo, they talk to each other. So they came to some interesting conclusion. One is that houses with parrots who talk on the phone usually end up getting a lot of mysterious packages from Amazon full of crackers. I could have expected that, but
Well, yeah.
they make the parrots that make the phone calls, they feel less isolated and they're more engaged in social behavior like preening and singing. The birds really need to talk to other birds to do that. The thing that I think they're covering it up for, is that these parrots gossip about their humans that they live with.
That would stand to reason in a way. That would stand.
Sure, or they gossip about other birds. I can just see a bunch of female parrots talking on the phone. First thing, that male macaw. I saw him doing strange things with a feather duster. I don't know what he was doing. And then the males do the same thing. They know that female parrot over there, she's sitting on fake eggs only because she wants the insurance deduction. So, I think this is not a good thing. Here's another thing so here's some good news now after we get through the bad news. And this is Karen spent much of her life in Michigan, so we got a Michigan story for Karen here. The Burger King franchise, the major Burger King franchisee in Michigan, just closed 26 locations. Closed them, laid everybody off, mostly in Metro Detroit. So a company by the name of Stizzy, Stiizy. Have you heard of them, Karen?
Never heard of them.
Okay,
Nope.
I'll tell you what. They're a cannabis brand in Michigan. I didn't know that marijuana was legal in Michigan.
Yep.
Apparently it is. Yeah. So Stizzy has offered to hire every single Burger King employee who was laid off. Every single one. What a great thing to do.
That's a great thing to do.
Yeah, John. Now, I know there has to be an ulterior motive, right? And there is. If you think about it, if you work at Burger King, you know an awful lot of people who smoke marijuana, especially the people that come in and order the triple Whoppers and an extra order of fries, at 2:00 in the morning. You know that they're good marijuana customers. So just call up all those people, invite them to your new job over at Stizzy's.
That's another thing that stands to reason, Paul and Karen, right?
There you go. There you go.
Very logical. Yeah.
What's the most popular brand of marijuana in Michigan, Karen? Time's up.
Yeah, I know.
Time's Time's up. It's Kalamazoo's. Kalamazoo's. All right, let's see. Do I want to do this story? Yeah, I'll do this story real quick here. So the moon, this is scary, actually. You know, going back out into space for a second here. Scientists have just told us that the moon is pulling away from Earth. Believe it or not, they measure it, and the moon is slowly but surely moving away from Earth. Why? It's afraid of what's going to happen in the next election. That's what I think. But actually, what it's doing is it's the gravity. It has to do with the gravity, obviously, of the two bodies, but also because Earth is spinning slower than it did, millennials ago. Millenniums, not millennials are people, millenniums. So this drift is taking place, and NASA says that it's moving. It's because the Earth is spinning slower. Now, they didn't say why. My guess is because we're gaining weight constantly. So, it's got to be, it's like like when you try to start your car and the battery's dead. They've estimated that the moon is pulling away from Earth an average of 1.5 inches per year, which is like every 8 years it pulls a foot away. Now that's a sizable amount. That pulls a foot away from us every 8 years. So they contacted Elon Musk, whose rocket just blew up, and he says, "Oh, now you tell me. I'm trying to get I'm trying to get to the moon, and now you're telling me the moon is moving. I can't hit a moving target. Come on, give me a break." And on that note,
yeah,
I hate to give Elon Musk a break, but I will. So I think we're going to move on to What in the World of Sports with John Donella. Boy, I hope I got my sports notes here. So every week on What in the World, we after we do the news, we turn to John, my old friend from college, the What in the World of Sports. I asked John to find us some unusual sports to talk about that fit with the theme of What in the World. Real sport, sometimes strange, always funny. Okay, and John always manages to find a good one. I ask him sometimes to find sports that we can compete in. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. I think this one this week is one that we might be able to handle. Even Karen.
Oh, even me?
I think all three of us could do it. Yes, I agree.
Along with our listeners out there. So John, why don't you introduce the sport while I line up your photos for you?
Sounds good, Paul. So this week, ladies and gentlemen, our sport is a sport that has the word ball in it.
Oh, it's a good sign.
It is certainly not unusual, but the name is.
Okay.
Introducing stool ball.
Oh.
Wait.
And that's it for this week for What in the World of Sports.
Wait a second. Wait, hold your horses.
John. Really? Stool ball?
Hold your horses.
Okay.
Now listen, with a name like that, you can think of several different things. Let's leave it at that. Leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay. But stool ball is an actual sport that dates back to the 15th century.
Wow.
And originated in Sussex and in southern England.
Okay.
It is what is called a, quote, traditional striking and fielding sport, unquote, and could be an ancestor to the popular English sport of cricket. A game that it resembles in some respects and also resembles some aspects of baseball, softball, and rounders.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, the sport has been called cricket in the air. And
cricket in the air. I've seen that.
Okay, now there's evidence.
It usually ends badly for the cricket.
There is evidence that it was played by milkmaids who used their milking stools as a wicket, and the milk bowl, or the milk bowl, which is also called the biddle, was used as a bat. Hence, the sport was also known as biddle battle. Not to confuse you, okay, but stool ball is one of the earliest recorded sports in which women could participate in.
So
Hmm.
I happened to find a really old drawing of milkmaids. That's what John said. I didn't believe him. Milkmaids playing stool ball. So this illustration, the stool is like the backstop in baseball, or
Yes.
the what do they call it in cricket? The wicket. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, the
Anyway,
wicket. Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
the thing that the batter stands in front of. And
Right.
so they're not picking up the stool and whacking each other with it or whacking the ball.
No.
The stool is like the target, and here's these four girls throwing the ball back and forth. Now they don't have the implement for batting. The other photos I have comes up with that. So go
Sure.
ahead, John. So, but this is a real thing. Really,
It
there's your stool. There's the girls playing
Mhm.
milkmaids. Look at the nice hairdos they have, by the way,
Oh,
Karen.
they're adorable.
Oh, and Karen,
Oh, anyway,
well, Karen, this is for you now.
Okay.
There is a National Stool Ball Association. It
Of
was
course.
formed. It was formed later than what you see these folks participating in. It was formed in 1979. Now the game,
Wow.
now the game was officially recognized as a sport by the governing sport body in England, which is called the Sports Council, and that took place many, many years after this in 2008. The National Stool Ball Association then changed its name to Stool Ball England in 2010, and that association, if you will, is the national governing body for Stool Ball England. So
wow.
it gets a
So
specific
it's legitimate.
association to association, right? Right. Now,
Wow.
now the game's national popularity from the middle and then later ages faded into the 1960s, but then there was a rebirth, and it still today is being played, obviously, and it's played at a local league level in Sussex, Kent, Surrey, and the Midlands, where teams can be men's, women's, or mixed.
Wow. So for those of you who need a reason to follow us on YouTube, I've had some pictures, some older pictures dating back to the early 1900s, I would think, black and white, showing women at that time playing stool ball in long skirts. A lot of old drawings of stool ball being played. So now we've got the modern version, and these women look like they're pitching fast and swinging hard at this game.
Well,
Uh,
right. Initially, it was more to be viewed as being not so much competitive, but as time did go on, again, it became a little bit more competitive and a little bit more, athletic. So, but that's enough for history. Let's get to the current rules.
oh yeah.
Okay. So the bowling of the ball and stool ball is done underarm. So the throwing motion is underarm,
Mm.
and it's from an area called the crease, which is 10 yards from the batsman's wicket. And the
Right.
ball,
What used to be the stool, right? It used
right,
to be the
right,
stool. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
It's taken the place of that. But
Yeah.
the ball reaches the batsman at full speed.
And it's close. That's close. That's close.
And,
That's nothing like fast pitch
and
softball or baseball.
And as you can see, look how strange it is. I mean, basically, it's a square piece of wood that's, at a
Yeah.
person's shoulder, height, if you will, and it's
Yeah.
fastened to the
Yeah.
post. Excuse
And
me.
the bats, the thing that they hit the ball with are not that big. They're more like giant ping pong paddles.
Well, I'll give you a different view, Paul, or a similar
Oh,
view.
okay, yeah.
Okay. The bowler attempts to hit the wicket with the ball, and the batsman defends it using a bat. Get ready for this. Shaped like a frying pan.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Ooh.
That's right. That's it. That's exactly what it looks like, a frying pan. You're right.
So the batsman
Now I'm
scores.
hungry.
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm always hungry. Wait, the batsman scores what is called a runt by running between the wickets or hitting the ball to the boundary in a similar way to cricket.
Wow.
A ball hit over the boundary counts for 4 runs, and if it hits the ground before reaching the boundary or before reaching the boundary, it counts for 6 runs. And again, it's if it lands beyond the boundary, it accounts for 6 runs if it lands beyond the boundary upon the contact with the ground. So it's all like one continuous motion.
Okay.
Fielders attempt to catch the ball or outrun the batsman by hitting the wicket with the ball before the batsman returns from his run.
Yeah, that sounds like
It's
cricket.
it's an intense sport, actually. It really
I
is.
guess so.
Yeah. Now it sounds like it'd be a perfect sport for seniors. It's just like baseball, but you get at least a stool to sit on when you get tired of standing, waiting for the ball to come to you in the outfield.
Oh,
Oh, definitely.
yeah.
I like that idea. I don't want to play pickleball. Stool balls for me.
Right. I mean, it's a little
Especially
bit,
if I can sit down. Yeah.
sure. You got to be
Wow.
able to rest. You got to be able to rest. Yeah.
Well, what a great sport. This actually sounds almost interesting as opposed to some of the other ones. Something that we could even, sponsor a team, the What in the World stool ball team. So a lot of interesting photos here. I had one thing that I wanted to mention here, and this was a rhyme. This is from 1648. It was so popular back then that this guy Robert Herrick in 1648 wrote this rhyme that apparently the women used as a cheer for stool ball. And I want to read for those of you who aren't on YouTube. I'll read it for you real quick. At stool ball, Lucia, let us play for sugar cakes and wine, or for a tansy let us pay the loss or thine or mine. If thou, my dear, a winner be at trundling of the ball, the wager shalt have, and me, and my misfortunes all. But if, my sweetest, I shall get, then I desire but this, that likewise I may pay my bet, and have for all a kiss. Hey, that sounds like the sport for me.
Well, it's interesting, Paul. It's interesting you brought that poem up because as I was doing research,
Yeah.
stool ball was really getting underway. It was always looked at as being like a courting activity between men and women.
Wow.
That was part of the attraction, so to speak, about the sport when it got started, was that there was romance and
Yeah.
that kind of approach to taking it. It wasn't just hitting the ball with the wicket or whatever, or hitting the ball
Yeah.
with the bat.
Battle, yeah.
It's really
Who wouldn't want to date a milkmaid? I mean, you
well,
got milk.
that's another thing. It goes to how what you perceive as what is a milkmaid, or what
Sure.
you perceive as a stool. It's all perception in that sense. But what an interesting sport! I think I was glad I was
It
able.
turned out to be very interesting, John. So as I mentioned, thank you. That was another great sport there. So this normally, John, as I mentioned, John and I were our fraternity brothers. We went to college together. We participated in a lot of sports, many that we don't remember anymore.
You want to forget.
As
You want to forget.
hard as I looked, John, I could not find us playing stool ball. However, John is a smart guy, and he held back on us here. John liked my idea about stool ball being added to baseball. And he's been tinkering in his home workshop. You didn't know John had a home workshop where he does tinkering. So John actually made a stool to go along with, to be used in baseball. I want to show you that stool here. So here's John's stool.
Oh,
design.
Wonderful.
Doesn't that look nice?
Well,
So-
I'll tell you what, it's taken me a lot of help from a lot of people to be able to do that. But I think it's kind of the idea, when you're in Rome, do what the Romans do. So when it comes to baseball season, you kind of do what baseball is. And, I really love
yeah, when it comes to baseball, you sit on a baseball, and that's what this is. It looks like two giant halves of a baseball put together. He's even got the bat. I love the bats in the back for support, bats for the armrest. Now, John, this is not all that John did, because he gets so comfortable on the baseball field in his baseball chair, his stool, that he made one for home. And I want you to see this one here. So here's his home stool. Look at that. Isn't that a
Wow.
baseball mitt chair, and an ottoman or a footstool made out of in the shape of a baseball. By the way,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, by the way, both of those are available on Amazon, which is where I found them. Those are real items. Real items.
Well, it was hard for me to get it past the net, right? I mean, she didn't really quite understand, but it was kind of more of the thing. Well, you can have that as long as you're in the corner and you're not in like the middle of the room. And
there you go.
People will just say, "Oh, there's John in the corner again." Just kind of leave him to his own
I'll tell you what,
over there, right?
I think that's the perfect shape to toss a butt into. Is
I would like that in my house.
Yeah, I think it's a really clever idea. So, all right, well, John, the man who's full of clever ideas, thanks again for that
You're
great.
Very welcome, Paul and Karen. Very welcome. Very welcome.
All right, so when What in the World of Sports is over, that means it's time for Bluff the Co-host, everybody's favorite weird news game. It's an easy game to play. I have 3 stories similar to the ones I've been telling this afternoon. One big difference: those were all real. These stories may be real, they may be a bluff, hence the name. It's up to you, Karen and John, to decide which ones are real, which ones are bluff. Gambling is allowed, so place your bets. John and Karen, place your hands on the buzzers. Let's get right to story number 1.
Okay.
Alaska is having a problem with its moose population. Last week, a moose walked into a hospital waiting room and had to be chased out by security. This week, a moose walked into a grocery store and had to be in Juneau, and proceeded to go up and down the aisles, sampling cereals, vegetables, ground meat, and anything else that looked good. Unfortunately, the small grocery had no security guard on duty, but it did have a smart customer who noticed the moose lingering in the ice cream aisle. Figuring it couldn't hurt, she picked up a carton of Moose Tracks ice cream, pulled off the top, and held it up for the moose. The moose started licking, the woman started walking, and before you knew it, the moose was outside, where it was given the carton to finish. Animal experts say any ice cream would have worked, but why mess with success? Okay, so story from Alaska. A moose wanders into a grocery store and is led out by a smart lady using Moose Tracks ice cream. Real or bluff? Karen, we'll start with you.
Well, if she was a little old lady like my mom used to be, that's something my mother would have done. So I'm going to say it's true.
Okay. With Moose Tracks?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right. Karen says that's a real story. John, how about you?
Well, I agree with Karen. I think it's a real story. I mean, first of all, I don't know a person that doesn't like ice cream. Now, a moose being part of the animal kingdom, right? I don't think animals would not be interested in ice cream either. So, and the Moose Tracks just is icing on the cake, so to speak. So,
ice cream on the cake. There you go.
There you go. So
all right. So John says humans have a tongue, moose have a tongue. We all like ice cream.
That's right.
So John says that story is real. Karen agrees that story is real. Let's check with the judges, and the judges say, sorry, that's a bluff. There's no such thing. Moose like an ice cream. Come on.
Now, wait a second. Now,
why not?
Yeah, why not is right. And wait a minute. Is there a caveat that it was a different kind of ice cream, like the mousse like
No.
chocolate ice cream.
No,
instead
no,
of
no.
fruit
That
snacks?
story's completely
No,
made up.
Hey, Karen, we should look into this. I'm
Oh,
actually gonna file
okay, okay.
I'm filing a protest.
He's really protesting there.
Oh man,
I'm
filed a
not going with
protest
this.
with the
I'm not going with
commissioner of what in the world
We'll
sports.
be back next week with some information about this. I'm
I got a better idea.
going
You
with
do the defend. You're the defendant here. Okay, well, if you can't figure it out from that discussion, the score is 0-0. Let's get right to story number 2.
Okay.
A traditional annual activity in Japan is something called the Crying Sumo Festival. Babies under the age of 1 are dressed in tiny sumo wrestler outfits, and one parent carries them into a sumo ring where they face another parent holding a similarly dressed baby. When the referee gives the signal, the parents must make faces and try to make their own baby cry. The first baby to start bawling is declared the winner. It is believed this was actually developed by bored doctors who wanted to hear babies cry in order to test their lungs, and it became so popular that it is now a popular annual ritual in many small towns. Get your crying sumo outfits on Amazon and start practicing your ugly faces. Just don't do the crying on an airplane. Okay, the Crying Sumo Festival in Japan, where you make faces at babies to make them cry for cash and prizes. John, what do you say, real or bluff?
I'm going to say it's real, and I have a reason for this. I think that we might have even did a story, not about this making babies cry, but with sumo wrestlers, something I remember with like children or infants being involved. Now, I could be off on that, but I think that there was a story that we did something similar to that. And so I'm just going to take this a step further in the sense that, okay, so children or infants in a ring, dressed as sumo wrestlers, trying to make them cry. I'm going to say it's real.
Okay, John says crying baby sumo wrestlers is real. Karen, how about you?
Karen, you're thinking hard on this one.
Long
I'm trying to
pause
figure
here.
out when we did this story. I'm just going to disagree. Just why not?
Oh, okay. Just to be disagreeable. Karen says it's a bluff. John says it's real. Let's check with the judges. And Karen, don't be disagreeable, but that is a real story.
Did we
John,
did you do a story on babies and
no,
sumo?
I've done stories about sumo wrestling. I don't know. I don't remember the child sumo connection.
All right.
But this was a new story off the news wire in Japan.
Okay.
So it just was resurrected because they had to cancel it during COVID. They're all excited now. They can do this again. All right, so let's check. Honest to God, let's check the scoreboard. John is ahead 1-0. Okay, but points are doubled in round number 3, so there's a chance for Karen to catch up. Let's get right to it with story number 3. Now that airlines are charging high fees for carry-on bags, many passengers are wearing 3, 4, and even more layers of clothing while they fly. That works, but what about shoes? A man in Montana solved this problem, but it may not be for everyone. After putting on his cowboy boots, he took a second pair of boots, turned them upside down, and tucked them into the pair he had on. He says it helps to wear baggy pants over them. He then attached his loafers to the brim of his cowboy hat. Hats are allowed and travel for free as long as they fit in the overhead compartment. Finally, he got a pair of those slippers that look like gloves with little sleeves for each toe and wore them as gloves on his hands. Gloves fly free too. It took him a while to get through security, but he saved enough money to afford to eat at an airport restaurant without the slippers on his feet, of course. Okay, so the man who wore, seems like 4 pairs of shoes on a flight in order to beat the fee for carry-on luggage. What do you say, Karen? Real or bluff?
Golly. I think you have to wear all those clothes because it's cold on an airplane today, but I'm going to say this is a bluff.
Oh,
Doesn't
Karen
sound
says
real.
it's a bluff. Okay, John, how about you?
Well, I think this is a bluff, and I'm just gonna throw this out there. This if this person did this, he's a knucklehead. I mean, what's the idea of trying to get? I can understand getting around the fees, right? But I said that a little bit extreme. I mean, I know it's a subject. It's a good subject for our show, right? But if a person really did this, he's a knucklehead. I'm going out on a limb on that one. He's a
Send all
knucklehead.
your hate mail to John Dinallo, care of.
Here, What in the World with Paul Seaburn.
Okay. All right, John. So, John, let me make sure I got this straight. So, John says it's a bluff, and Karen says it's a bluff, right?
Yep.
Both of you say it's a bluff.
That is correct.
Let's check with the judges. And the judges say you're both right. That was a bluff.
Thank
Oh,
God. Oh,
I
good.
guarantee one of our listeners is thinking, I could do that.
Well, that might be
because as John said, we have knuckleheads for our listeners.
well,
And
I'm just putting it out there. I mean,
just putting it out there. A good old Stoolball John, as we're going to call him now. So that's the end of What in the World for this week. I'm your host, Paul Seaburn. Thank you so much for joining us in the future on YouTube. Please, if you like us on YouTube, follow us. Do all that good stuff so that we know that you are listening, and we thank you so much for doing that. I want to thank our producer, media mogul at newclevelandradio.net, and wonderful co-host Karen Hale. Thank you so much for everything you do for us at What in the World, and for all of the podcasts on newclevelandradio.net. Everybody, check them out. Last but not least, my old buddy John. A fun show for us today, John. Thank you so much for everything you bring.
you're welcome. It's a great show, and again, you just keep coming up with those three things at the end of the show. I mean, it makes you think. It makes you think.
it certainly does.
Gives you something to think about for the rest of the week. All right. On that note, we will say bye-bye till next week.
Go
Bye-bye.
Cavs.
Go Cavs.
Go Cavs, right.